the tiny, dreamy harbour of Hoi An. Today, it's difficult to believe that 300 years ago, this was one of the most important seaports in Vietnam. Now, only small fishing boats lie at anchor in the harbour. In former times, Hoi An experienced a flourishing trade with Europe. However, the harbour is now the domain of local fishermen, and sharks are in popular demand. Whether on the riverbanks of the Tu Bon, the narrow streets or the fascinating shops, Hoi An has retained the colourful atmosphere of bygone times. Life continued here as normal until, in the early 1990s, the tourist industry began to develop in Vietnam. The city's newfound prosperity has not yet reached the entire city. However, it is reflected in some of its buildings. Both architecturally and culturally, Hoi An has been influenced by two nations, Japan and China. And even today, Chinese influence is omnipresent. Many of the city's meeting halls, temples and homes are of typical Chinese design. Both the Kan Am Temple and the Kan Kong Temple date back to the 17th century. This sanctuary was built in honor of the legendary Chinese warrior general Kan Kong in 1653. Can Tang House is one of the city's oldest buildings. It is one of 5 historic residences that is open to the public. Traditionally, each house consists of 2 buildings. In the front section, large family celebrations were held and goods were sold. Even business meetings were held there. The elaborate design of the rooms depicted the social status and wealth of each family. The houses close to Hoi An Market are far more modest. Each morning, the market stalls display a large variety of products and are a truly colourful and exotic sight. For almost 2,000 years, the South China Sea has provided the local population with its main source of food. Numerous arts and crafts, and most notably traditional wood carvings, still flourish in the old part of the town. But due to increasing tourism, the number of small family businesses has declined in recent years. Despite the souvenir shops and other signs of tourism, time seems to have stood still in Hoi An, and it's a little like being in the middle of the 19th century. Toward the end of the 17th century, an increasing number of Chinese merchants settled in the city, and this gave rise to the construction of several splendid meeting halls. Business relationships were cultivated in these traditional communal buildings and new friendships made. Information was exchanged and ancestors and gods were worshipped. Five Chinese clans dominated the daily life and trade of this prosperous harbour city. In the 17th century, the city began to flourish. The Portuguese, Dutch and Spanish transformed Hoi An into a trading crossroads between the West and Far East. Pung Hung House unites various Asian architectural styles, an impressive mixture of Chinese, Vietnamese and Japanese elements. A former 17th century emperor decided to prohibit contact with foreigners, and so the majority of Japanese merchants were forced to leave Hoi An. However, many stately buildings remained, and they were used by various merchants. The city's economic prosperity continued up until the 19th century. Many of its fine buildings date back to that time. The bridges of Hoi An. They once connected the Japanese area of the city to the Chinese quarter. Today, they represent the unity of these two peoples. The city's prosperity began to decline when its harbour was unable to accommodate the larger ships that were being built and were far too large for the facilities offered by Hoi An. Hoi An harbour drifted into further decline. The increasing silting up of the Tubon River prevented the larger vessels from reaching the harbour. Thus, for more than a century, the city was left in the shadows, and the Vietnam War of the 20th century created further difficulties for its population. But once again, it is beginning to prosper, and the historic ambience of this intriguing city may well mark a new beginning to the inhabitants of Hoi An.